Hello everyone! Miya Twins Angst Part 2 is here. Perhaps a little bit more angsty than the first one, because the first one was more on the womb side. This is more on the angst side, I suppose. Now that I have it done, I realize that I could have put it into one video, but honestly I would probably be completely exhausted. And yeah, that would take too long, so 2 parts better. Yeah, you can call me lazy all you want, but my throat hurts after these recordings, okay? Anyway, special thanks to all my lovely patrons and all of you who subscribe and watch these videos. You are keeping this channel alive and going. Thank you very much, and I hope you will enjoy. The next hours felt like one giant blur of images and sound. If it wasn't for Sakusa's hand leading him in the right direction, Atsumu was sure he would be bumping into walls wherever he moved. He couldn't see, he couldn't comprehend, neither time nor place. All he knew was they were in the hospital, a place he wanted to be at the least, sitting on the horribly uncomfortable chair when he was supposed to be the one connected to all the beeping monitors. His chest constricted when he took in Osamu's pale, almost greyish complexion, his throat tightening to the point of choking. The only relief came in the form of the steady beeps of the heart monitor, telling them Osamu's heart was beating again. But even that couldn't do anything against the sinking feeling in Atsumu's stomach. He dreaded looking into Suna's face, scared of what he could find in his expression. He wouldn't blame him in the slightest if he was angry. To be honest, he expected to get yelled at already, perhaps kicked out of the room. But nothing of that sort happened yet, and to his shock, Suna wasn't even keeping his distance from him. On the contrary, he stayed seated right next to him, gripping his sleeve so firmly his knuckles turned white. Why though? Why aren't you blaming me already? This is my fault. All mine. He swallowed the lump stuck in his throat and lowered his gaze, unable to look at Osamu's still form anymore without crying. It was supposed to be me. The room as if stilled, tension immediately gathering in the air. What are you talking about? He sent me to do the lights. I asked him if he needed something and he said to hang the lights. He would be fine if... A heavy hand squeezed his shoulder, but instead of the usual comfort, it only threw him further into despair. Sumu, you couldn't know something would happen. It's not your fault. Not your fault. It is, though. I was supposed to be hanging the lights, but we argued again, and I sent him to do it himself. His voice hitched, mist returning into his vision as the needles of guilt pierced through his chest, stabbing and strangling at the same time. Osamu didn't deserve this. Didn't deserve to have his heart stopped. Didn't deserve to have someone like Atsumu as his brother. Atsumu, that's not... Why aren't you blaming me? Why when it's my fault? If I just hung those stupid lights, he would be fine. And you in the hospital. And... Atsumu, stop, please. Why? It's true. If I just... And what would change? You could have ended up even worse. And someone would feel horrible if he made you do something that would send you to hospital. A sour chuckle escaped Atsumu's mouth. How can you tell? For all I know, he might be glad. A falling pin could be heard in the silence that followed his words. Why though? Why did both Sakusa and Suna look so stunned? It wasn't like he was lying. You can't be serious. Please tell me you are joking. Do you seriously think so little of him? No, not of him. Just myself. Suna's expression turned into something Atsumu had never seen before. It was amazing in itself since Suna's flat face was almost a meme in the league. He didn't dare to look at Sakusa, even though he could feel his boyfriend's eyes burying into his back. Atsumu, do you want to tell us something? No. Why? He flinched when the hand on his shoulder squeezed harder and turned him around to face Sakusa and his blazing eyes. But Atsumu wasn't blind. He knew his boyfriend and his expressions. And to his surprise, he realized Sakusa was scared. Don't you dare to drop this and then leave it. Talk to us, damn it. What's going on? You've never talked like this before. Well, I wasn't sitting by my brother's hospital bed after he almost died instead of me before either. Sakusa's face scrunched in something too similar to pain for Atsumu's comfort, the sight feeling like a slap in his face. Why did he have to keep hurting people around him when it was supposed to be him to get hurt? A jolt ran through his skin when Sakusa cupped his face, surprisingly gently for someone in obvious distress, making him look up. Sumu, it was an accident. You couldn't know something would happen. You won't help him by blaming yourself. Yeah, and Samu would be destroyed if something happened to you, I can assure you. You should have seen him when he called about that branch. Huh? He couldn't even cook because his hands shook so bad. For real? He sighed, looking down at his hands clenched in his lap. Maybe Osamu was worried about him before, but they weren't arguing back then. This was different. Sumu. He only realized he was crying when Sakusa brought his thumbs under his eyes. And once the dam broke, he couldn't do anything to stop it. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Two pairs of strong arms wrapped around him as he folded his head in his palms, soothing the shaking of his shoulders and soul alike. He's going to be okay. You'll see. Unable to bring himself to leave Osamu's side, he stayed seated on the chair even when Suna and Sakusa left the room to get them something to eat, keeping a bedside vigil in case something happened. And perhaps to keep himself from panicking too much by watching his brother's slowly raising and falling chest. He wasn't sure when, but at some point throughout the several excruciating hours, he laid his head on the bed, took Osamu's unburned hand in his, and refused to let go despite the tiny but persistent voice in his head telling him he had no right to do that. But that didn't matter. Osamu could kick him out himself when he woke up. Until then, Atsumu was going to keep making sure he was alive. He didn't care about anything else. Just keep that heart beating. That's important. Damn it, what am I supposed to tell Mom? She'll be beside herself if... He straightened up abruptly, his own heart beating for both of them. A ginormous wave of relief washed over him when he saw Osamu's eyes opened and looking at him, alive, though a bit confused. He wanted to squeal and cry, ask so many questions and plead for forgiveness, but his mouth refused to let out a single word. leaving him with only a wet chuckle as tears entered his eyes again. Thank God. Thank all gods. Hey. He cleared his throat, finally finding his voice and strength to dry his eyes. How do you feel? You scared me so much. I thought... He couldn't continue, his throat closing as his mind supplied him with the memory of Osamu's motionless form lying on the snow. Osamu's brow furrowed, and Tatsumu almost jumped when he returned the light squeeze of his hand. Where? In hospital. Do you remember what happened? The crease on Osamu's forehead deepened, the beeping of the heart monitor speeding up a bit. I went to plug the lights, but the socket wasn't working. He fell silent, his face twisting in pain and possibly frustration. I don't know. That's okay. Don't strain yourself too much. You need to rest now. Why am I here? Your heart stopped. We aren't sure, but it's probably because you got electrocuted. From the box. He bit hard on his lip, clenching his free hand to stop it from trembling. He was ecstatic Osamu was awake, of course he was. He wished nothing more than to see that his brother was all right. And yet, now that he was awake, Atsumu couldn't silence the disembodied voice in his head anymore. Well, I'll go call Sunarin here. He's going to be so happy you are awake. And Ome too, even though he won't say it out loud. You probably don't want to see me, do you? I'll go back to the restaurant, I guess. Don't worry, I won't break anything else. I'll just call electrician to take a look at the wires and... He was already getting up, losing his voice with every next word as his throat continued to close, when a weak grip on his hand stopped him. Hey. Why though? Why would you want me here when... You should be the one sitting here. You were supposed to be alright, not me. Stay. The firm tone in Osamu's voice surprised him enough to make him sit down again. The grip on his hand tightened, and then a realization hit him. It wasn't that Osamu's tone was firm because he was upset, rather to hide the slight tremble of his lower lip, to hide the panic in his eyes, to make sure Atsumu stayed, because he was scared. Atsumu's heart shattered, and while he still couldn't convince himself he had the right to stay by Osamu's side, leaving him alone when he clearly needed support would make him even more despicable. He covered Osamu's hand, instinctively rubbing small circles into his skin. Okay, I'm not going anywhere, I promise. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. As I said in the previous part, this was my very first time including Miya twins as the central focus point of anything, pretty much, from the stuff I write. Normally on AO3 and here on the channel. So let me know how it was. If you haven't already, even if you have already, let me know how much angst was there and all that stuff, what you thought, because it's going to help me figure out if I can do this again or if it was so bad that I should wait for some time before attempting something like this again. So your comments are very important right now. Other than that, I have good news. I passed my last exam this semester, so that means re-uploads are coming back in full strength, and yeah, overall the videos are coming back in full strength. I'm still pulling from the stuff I have already wrote at work. Shh, shh, shh. We don't talk about that. I'm not sure how it's going to look like next week because I plan on traveling a bit because I haven't been anywhere for the last year and a half, so it's time. But I will try to at least pre-make some videos for you, so there is no break. Anyway, I'm talking too much. If you have any requests or ideas, the request form is linked in the video description. See you next time.